Nation, in this life that we lead, there are a few guarantees. There's the guarantee that we will die. There's the guarantee that we will pay taxes. And there's a guarantee that whenever a Rush album comes out, it will be an event for progressive rock and progressive metal fans alike. Rush's Clockwork Angels is due out here in America on June the 12th and Australia on June the 8th. And this is going to be another landmark event. Rush is proving once again with this album that they really do seem to be ageless. And it's also an album where they're proving that they also have not lost touch completely with their roots from the 1970s. This is a band that has gone through many different incantations throughout the years. Not so much with members, because that's been consistent, but instead in the style of music in which they played. Whenever they first started off, they were, of course, one of the real purveyors of the progressive rock scene. They were one of the real mainstays. They were a band that has inspired literally a laundry list of progressive metal stalwarts of today. Then, as they moved into the 1980s and into the 90s, it departed a little bit more away from that and started to gear a lot more towards heavy or hard rock. But now with Clockwork Angels, there is a return to that progressive swagger, the progressive swagger that we heard a little bit on Snakes and Arrows. There is a return to that epic feel, to that fantastical feel that you could almost hear on each and every Rush album back in the 1970s. It's returned to a certain degree, but any return is one hell of a return. So let's talk a little bit more about this album. The first thing that you're going to notice about this record is that it's roughly 66 minutes in length, and it encompasses roughly about 12 tracks. And this originally may appear to be a little bit daunting. It may seem like perhaps they've put together an album that will satisfy only in locations, only in droves, however, overall feel kind of dated, jaded, and just like a couple of old dogs trying to rehash some old tricks. But then you listen to the release. Then you actually get deeply involved into this release, and you start to notice the personality that it's able to undertake, the personal meaning that it's able to really bring across. And the message is fairly simple, and that's the fact that this is a life that we lead. And as we grow older, we start to reflect cautiously ever more about the things that we've done in our past, the way in which we were raised, the way in which our life had been and had really taken shape. And we begin to start thinking about the future. We begin to have our feelings shift. We begin to have our personalities shift slightly to kind of accommodate the times, to accommodate situations, to accommodate people that you're around. And in a way, it's almost like the person who is in control of time is a demented carnival freak. Somebody who is able to concoct this illicit plan to control everybody through a simple two hands, the minute hand and the second hand. Our hand, of course, is a little bit less of a controlling device, mainly because with every passing, ticking second, we are 1 second closer to death. This theme is something that is not necessarily always done with such a morbid glow as I maybe have just represented it. Instead, it's something that's done with a lot of power, a lot of passion. There's some playfulness in here, which really seems to me, at least, exuberate, success, or exuberates, those formidable years where everything is just kind of a lot of fun. The song "Carnies" is a good example of this. I really like the imagery that is presented throughout the lyrics of this particular track. Of course, the lead-off single was actually not Headlong Flight, which I just reviewed a couple of weeks ago. It was actually a song called Caravan, the very first track off of the album, and this was something that was that we got about 2 years ago in 2010, and it was kind of a peculiar, curious little song that kind of gave us a little taste of the type of music that Rush was writing for Clockwork Angels. And in reality, whenever you hear the final product, you've got yourself a real mammoth of an album. You've got yourself something that's really shaped together. It's kind of constructed with a very loose theme, but it feels all the more potent once you reach the conclusion of the album. The last couple of tracks on the album really just kind of make me feel like we've just gone through a life cycle, you know. With Headlong Flight, I really feel like this is a group that's kind of, reflecting back on their career, reflecting back on younger days and how they would live it all again and everything like that. And then you have a track like Wish Them Well, which is basically a way of saying, you have to exercise all of those demons, or exercise all of those, feelings of anger or scorn towards people that perhaps are no longer with us, or you just wish well the people that are no longer a part of your life or are no longer part of this earth. And then you get to a song like The Garden, a garden that just has so much power behind it. It's almost like saying to a listener that this is something that now involves your time. This is your new hobby, something that seems so simple and innocent that might not seem like all of that interesting of a device to you whenever you're younger, whenever you're kind of going through the hustle bustle of life. But now it has become your universe. It has become your world. It's become the one thing that embodies you, while at the same time it also could be a brilliant metaphor for planet Earth itself. Overall, I think that this album is going to shine forth in a lot of people's eyes and ears in a couple of different ways. For one, the music is definitely not cut and dry. While there does seem to be some moments where it is a little bit repetitive from a track-to-track basis, where, in that I mean, it doesn't exactly wow you with a lot of huge dynamics or complex patterns. It's something where it is very classically done. It's something that is done with a lot of gusto. It's done with a lot of power behind it. This is a band that carries themselves through their charisma, through their way of kind of registering their thoughts and projecting them on you. It's not like they're trying to be overbearing whatsoever, and it doesn't come off that way. But instead it comes off as somebody who is trying to be very conversational with you, and you're enthralled by the way in which they're able to present themselves. Secondly, the lyrics of this album and the overall theme are going to be something that a lot of people are going to talk about. And I feel this way because it has a certain relativity to all of us. It has a certain relevance to all of us. This is something that we can relate to very easily because we're all going through different parts of our lives each and every day. We may move into different stages of our life over the course of decades, but each and every day we're going through a particular stage of our life. We might not know it at the particular moment. We might not know tomorrow, or the next day, or the next week, that the stage that we're going through was a stage of depression that eventually we would come out of. Or we wouldn't know that this was a stage of weakness that would eventually lead to success, or success that would eventually lead to a downturn. We don't know, but we're going through something day by day. And finally, this band, once again, as I said at the opening, sounds unequivocally ageless. They sound fresh, they sound rejuvenated, they don't sound like they've been around since the latter part of the 1960s. They do not sound that way at all. They sound as though they are a fresh batch of kids with one hell of a good concept. But what comes with the age is the experience. And that's something that causes this album to project itself in a much more powerful light. Because this writer, these writers of music, along with this lyric writer, are able to accurately depict this notion because they have gone through it. This is an album full of power. The 66 minutes that this album takes place goes by in what does not feel like an hour and 6 minutes, and instead feels like a very short period of time. It's almost like you're at the final couple of tracks of the album and you wonder where the time has gone. You wonder why it is already over. You don't want it to be over. You want this to continue, so they've kept you engaged. They've also kept you really in tune with enough variety. There's definitely variety on this album, and there is certainly a grand deal of structure and texture to this. Do not look over this just because it may not sound like A Farewell to Kings or Hemispheres or 2112. This is an album that has progression in its own light, and it shines forth very, very beautifully. I cannot praise what Geddy and the boys are able to do enough. This is a very, very well concocted record. The time it took in order for this to be released was spent very well. And the boys, as I said, continue to amaze me with how young that they sound, despite how old they really are. I have to give this album an 8.75, and I may even elevate that to a 9 with repeated listens. I really enjoyed this. I really, really enjoyed this. I enjoyed this more than the last couple of Rush albums that came out. Vapor Trails I wasn't keen on, but I enjoyed it. Snakes and Arrows was better, but this one so far has just, it's undoubtedly impressed me. And I am very, very proud to say that on June 12th, CoverKillerNation's birthday, Rush will be releasing Clockwork Angels here in America, internationally, in every place, every location except for Australia. And I highly encourage all of you, whether you're fans of the progressive rock genre or just fans of classic rock in general, to definitely get this album, check it out, and be enthralled by it. Because you will be enthralled by it.